Hi everybody, it's Friday. We're off with our tags again. Just thought I'd show my wheel of tags. We're on week 23. So we're nearly halfway through the year. I'm very impressed that I'm still going and that you're still with me, which is fantastic. Hope you're keeping up, hope you're up to date. Thanks to everybody for any comments that you make, sharing or anything like that on Facebook, Instagram, anything. It's just absolutely fantastic. I've gone back to, as I've said before, my not with me on the video. I was having problems, I think, with the sound and the quality of the video, so hopefully it's going to get a little bit better. Just seems a little bit easier. It's easier for me to do it like this as well. So week 23, keep sharing. I do go on and have a look at the tags, but there's so many of you doing it, I just cannot keep up to date with everything that's going on. So please comment on each other's, encourage everybody. It's lovely to hear that some people are doing them as little groups, you've got projects going, and even though things are hopefully getting back to normal, maybe-ish, it's just something that you can keep on doing. So I will be going right to the end of the year, so I hope you're going to keep up with me. If you've just joined in, it's a free project. It's on my YouTube. There's all the previous weeks that we've done on there. On my website there's a list of them all with photographs of each one of my tag. All I just ask in return is you just hit that button and just subscribe to my channel. It's just brilliant. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So last week we did our layers of lace. So I've decided this week we need a bunch of flowers. So we're going to do a little flower pot or a little bunch of flowers on our tag. So again, have a look at all your threads, and I'd like you to choose a colour that you don't normally work with. This is the one that I always dread because I always end up going pink, even though after last time in my book when I said that I don't like pink, I do actually quite like pink now, but it's still not my personal favourite. I still tend to go towards the blues and greens and things like that. So we're gonna go pink, a bunch of pink flowers. So let's move that to one side. So I've got my tag, and what I've collected together in my little audition is I have a backing piece of fabric. So my usual go-to is just a little bit of vintage quilting. So I've got one here. It's a grey stripy one. It's quite nice on the other side as well, but I think I'm going to go quite subtle because I want these colours to really pop out. And then I've collected together a range of threads. I've got a green on there, a lime green, because I think lime green goes really nice with the pink. And then the pinks that I've got a full range. So I've got some Perle 12s and 8s. Got a few 8s, quite like the thinner threads. I think that one is a slightly thicker one. It's a DMC. It's a cotton, so that's quite thick, a bit thicker than my other one. I've got some other ones there. Then I've got a stranded cotton, and then just some really nice threads. I'm not sure what these are. That one's a little bit shiny. That one I think is probably a cotton, but it's quite a thin one. It's not a Perle, but it just looks like a really nice cotton thread. So I've pulled together a range of colours. I've got my backing thread, backing piece, sorry. So what we need to do, and I've also picked out, I have a little tin of teeny tiny, you know my obsession with linen buttons. One of the sets that I bought, I got these tiny little bits. I'm not even sure what they are. They just sort of stitch on from the back, but I thought because we're doing little flowers it might be quite nice to have some of those. I don't know whether or not I will use them, but they're there. Usually I do things like that, put it to one side and then totally forget that it's there. So as usual we need to cut out our backing. I can't remember don't know which way to have my stripe. I might have my stripes going across because it's a little bit then like a landscape going across. So get my tag, pop it on. I always just slightly offset my tag to trim it, because then I know that my bit of fabric is going to be just that little bit smaller than my actual tag. To one side. Just move that down a bit, not got that very straight. There we go. Then all the bits that I don't use, I tend to keep them. So get little squares like that. That's really cute for popping just a little bit of embroidery on there. Okay, there we go. Let's pop those to one side. Okay, so I've got my little backing piece that I'm going to be working on. Then I need to make a, well, there's different things that you could do. You could just stitch a little bunch of flowers using the technique that I'm going to show you, and you could tie it with a little ribbon or something like that. You could create a little flower pot. I've actually got a little vintage collar that's got this little pointed bit, and I just thought, ooh, that's going to look really, really cute if I have that as my little vase for my flowers. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to think about the fact that I'm just cutting something up, which is cute, but I'm not looking at it like that. I'm just looking at it as this is going to be my little pot for my flowers to go into. Okay, so I've got my little pot there. I'm not going to stitch that on because I want all my flowers to come out, and then when I pop that on, I'm just going to stitch either side, and I'll probably just push it up a little bit just so that it looks like a little pocket. Oh, not coughed in ages. And just start coughing. Obviously before you put that on, you could play around with adding any other little bits and pieces that you wanted to in the background. I've just got that ribbon there that's a measuring tape, because I thought it's a little bit like how does your garden grow, and it's sort of like you're counting how your garden is growing, and that actually could wrap around the bottom. Ooh, or do I have it that way around? No, I need the number 1 to start at the bottom. Number 1 going up there. There we go. So I'm just going to keep that, and then I'm going to do all my stitching. So I don't need to do anything with this for now. That needs to go on one side, but I do need to attach that to what I'm doing. I think I'm going to do it so that it'll wrap over at the top end. So let's trim it off at number 10. Okay. Grab a pin, pop that in, just make sure it's nice and straight. So you could do anything. You could add little bits of lace, trimming. As I say, every single week, this is just the starting point. I'm beginning to get to a stage actually where I wish that somebody else was leading the project and I could watch the videos and then do my tag, because I do a tag and then I see everybody else's tags and I want to redo my tag because I see such fantastic ideas, things that I hadn't even thought about, which are just amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some little stitches just with a pink cotton. There we go, just going up each of the little measurements. Okay, just have to prattle on at you while I'm doing this. I hope everybody's fitting well. Hope if you're getting your jab. Oh, you've got that coming. Right, I've just got a phone call coming. I will be back in a second. Sorry about that. That was when you get one of those phone calls that you just can't ignore. Where was I? No idea. Oh, just asking how everybody is. Things here have been a bit bonkers over the past couple of months. For those of you that, I don't know if you've read anything about me or anything like that, I'm a teacher as well, so I teach 4 days a week. I'm the head of art at our local secondary school, so we've been doing all our assessing and marking, so I've been rather busy with that. So I'm just sitting and doing this. I've just finished work. It's a bit of a treat really. just to come in and do some stitching. It's quite nice, even though I am sat here talking to myself. I don't know about anybody else, but I know when I'm stitching I can just feel my shoulders relaxing, and it's like nothing else exists that's going on outside, which is quite a nice escape really, especially this past year and a half. Well, I don't know, a year. It seems like forever really. Can't remember the last time things felt a bit more normal, but slowly, slowly. Hopefully wherever you are, things are okay. I know it seems to be very, very different still, no matter where you're living, as to who you can see, who you can't see, what you can and what you can't do. And it's quite unnerving really, you're not quite sure what's going on. Oh, I forgot to wrap that round. There we go. Right, that didn't take as long as I thought. So you could use whatever stitch you want to fasten these down. I'm just going to do a couple of little stitches just on the back, just to keep that in place. And then I'm going to get on with my flowers. I'm not going to worry about stitching down the other side, because once I've started stitching all the flowers on, it should, in theory, just a little stabbing stitch, all stitched down. Okay, right, so for our flowers we're going to use lots of different stitches, and you can use whatever you want, and I know that some of you will use ones that I haven't even thought of, and I'll be really, really jealous. Okay, so all I'm going to do is just place my little vessel or my vase or whatever it is that you're going to want to put on, and that is at that point, so it's at number 4, and I'm just going to pop a pin across so that I know that I need to go just below that with my little stitches. So what I'm going to do to start off with is I'm going to start with my green thread, and I'm just going to put myself some really simple little stems. So I'm going to start below my pin line, and all I'm going to do is just a selection of different lengths of a straight stitch. And we're slowly going to build these up to create our little vase. So if you wanted to do one and not do a vase and just do like a little bunch of flowers, what I would do with that is choose a point where you want your little ribbon to go, and I would do straight stitches down and then straight stitches out, and then you can put your bow over the top if that's what you fancy doing. You might decide that you want to do a little garden, so it might just be a little line of plants or flowers just going along a little line. You could pop a little bit of ribbon in there or a bit of lace just to sort of like give you a ground to work on. So I'm just going to do a few of these. Now quite a few of these are going to get stitched over, so this is sort of just giving us a bit of a background, and I might come back on depending on how it looks. And once we've got a few more stitches in, if I want to make it feel like it's coming into the foreground, is to do a few more. Right, so if I pop that down there, then when you've got your little vessel on, can you see how it's going to look? So you'll end up seeing they disappear behind your little vase or your little vessel or whatever it is. Then comes the fun bit, because the next bit we're going to do then is start adding the flowers. So there are stitches that we've done before that I'm going to use, and you can just use them in lots and lots of different ways. There's certain ones like a chain stitch done like a lazy daisy, which gives you a really, really pretty flower shape. You've got pistol stitches, but you can play with the chain stitch and fly stitches and all sorts to give you different plants and flowers. Excuse me, I'm just going to blow my nose. Suffering a bit at the moment with hay fever. Okay. Right, so there we are. I can take my pin out now. So the first one that I'm going to do, I'm going to play with a fly stitch, I think. So I'm going to go for a rusty colour, a rusty pink. So what we can do with the fly stitch is you come up. I'll try and bring this down a little bit. Sometimes it doesn't focus as well when it's a little bit lower down. Let's see how we do. Oh, move gubbins out of the way. Okay, so sorry, my thread's come up. And what I'm going to do is go down, and then you come back up again, and that thread there comes around your needle. Okay, that's coming around my needle. And play around. Right, so I'm switching the autofocus on, which means that hopefully it'll stay a bit more in focus, but things might move around a little bit. But I'll try and keep this on the desk so that it begins to play. So you create your little V shape. So I've got my little bit V, and then you can just bring that down as a stem. Oops. So I've got my little V that's there and another little stem. So you can play around with those, and this is when you're doing this and you can overlap the greens and things that you've already done, because these are just really cute. Just to pop these down. So we're working quite small with our stitches, and what I would tend to do to start off with is do things in odd numbers. I think things are always better when you do them as an odd number. So I just go back down. So I've got this little loop there, come up in the middle and just make sure that that thread just gets caught there, and then take your stem down. So I've got 3 of those, so I'm just going to tie that off the back. Oh, I've ended up with a long one there. I don't know how I've managed that. It'll get caught down. Nobody sees the back. We're going to glue it on a tag. It's fine. Okay, hopefully. I'm not looking up, so I'm just hoping that the focus is okay. Right, so we've done those little bits. Oops, I've just gone and unthreaded my needle. So what we can do then is to add a little bit of interest to our little fly stitches, is then get a different colour. So I'm going to go with a little bit of a brighter pink, a little bit thicker thread. Okay. So what I'm going to do is in the little V that's there, I'm going to go up and I'm going to do a French knot. So a little reminder, French knot, point your needle away, thread away, 1, 2, 3, back down the hole, just pull that little thread and then just pull it through, and we create our little knot. So I'm going to pop a little French knot in each one. Point your needle away, point your thread away, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, go back down where you just came up, just make that knot at the bottom, and then just pull it through. So it's going to come up, point it away, 1, 2, 3, back down. Just pull that thread so you've made the knot at the bottom of your needle, and then pull it down and out. So I've got that, so it's just beginning to add a little bit. Now while I've got that thread, because I think French knots are really cute, I'm just going to add a few, 1, 2, 3, depending on how thick your thread is. Just depends on how many times you might want to wrap it round. So a slightly thicker thread, oh, I've got something caught in there, a slightly thicker thread you don't want to wrap round too many times. A thinner thread you can wrap round loads of times. So the thicker ones I'll probably do 3, thinner ones you could do 7 or 8. So I'm remembering that I can come down to near where my little vase and my little pot's going to be. 1, 2, 3. So I've got 6, go for 7. There we go. Let's tie that off at the back. I've got a big loop. Oh, I'm not doing very well with the back of this today. Got some serious loops going on. There we go. Let's finish that one off. Okay, so to pop my little thing back on. So you can see I'm beginning to get my little vase. So I want to get some little bits up here. So if I want to carry on with the knots, then what I can start adding is a pistol stitch. Now I feel like I need some slightly brighter thread. Well, that's quite pretty. This is a variegated cotton. Did I put that in a needle? No, I don't think I did. So using a variety of different strands as well will add some depth to your piece of work. Okay, so I'm going to go with a pistol stitch now. So we're still doing our knots, still French knots, but rather than going back down in the same spot, we're going to take it towards the end of a stitch. So again, point your needle away from what you're doing. 1, 2, it's a thin thread, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I'm going to move my needle away from the hole. Just pull it again so that you get your knot at the bottom of the needle, pull it through, and you end up with a little stitch with a tiny knot on the end. Now these ones you can really go to town, and if you have got a variegated thread, this is lovely, because what will happen is as you are stitching, the colour will change. Okay. Go. Use whatever threads you've got available. Don't worry if you haven't got lots of different thicknesses. So say if you've got DMC threads, that's great, you've got the colours, and all you need to think about there is using a single strand, a double strand, a triple strand. I'll probably, I don't know, probably you could go to it. I've got my 6-stranded cotton because I'll show you something with that, because I think it is quite nice to use different thicknesses of thread, because it gives a very different effect. So because I've got my little French knots and I've got this 1, 2, 3, I want to do some really little tiny little French knots. Just going to pull that out. And here you go. So then just grouping little knots together. Again, odd numbers are brilliant. 2, 3. So just adding some tiny, tiny French knots. 1, 2, 3. There we go. So hopefully you can see now that's beginning to start coming together, and some of the stitches that you've done in the background will begin to disappear, but that's what's going to give it quite a bit of depth. So other stitches then we can use. You could play around if you want to do tiny little daisies. So you've got a little chain stitch that you could you don't have to go all the way around. A chain stitch generally it has little chains all the way around, but because we're doing our little bunch of flowers, you don't have to have them all the way around. So chain stitch, I've come up with my needle, so I'm going to go back down where I came up because I want this to be quite small. So create my loop, come up where I want the end of the loop to be. Don't pull it too tight because you want to keep it as a loop, and then you go over the top and back down, and that creates your little chain, and then all you do is work your way around. So come back up in the middle, got your thread, go back down, oops, getting myself in a knot. What the heck's happening there? Right, there we go. You've got your little loop, bring your needle up where you want the end of the petal to be. Got my loop around there, pull that through slowly and not too tight. Turn it around, and you can go all the way around, or you can just do 3 as if they're just sticking out the top. Oh, there we go. And again, like I said, overlap bits that you've already done. So rather than doing 6, I'm going to go for 5. The threads are not playing today. There we go. So it's creating that little loop. Got to remember to looking up. I'm sorry. So sometimes I get a bit engrossed in what I'm doing and I actually pull it towards me and then you can't see what's going on. The biggest problem I think I have with these videos as well is once I've done the video and I've made the tag, I just pray that they work because they take so long to do. I don't really have the time to then remake them, so if there are errors I'm really sorry, but hopefully by the end of the year I might know what I'm doing. Okay. There we go. Then just to finish it off, you could do a tiny little French knot in the middle, so hopefully, there we go. You can, the camera's actually playing today. You can see the little daisy stitch there, so that's my little fingernail, so you can see how little it is. So just dotting those in and amongst over the top would be really, really cute. Because quite a lot of the stuff we've done so far has been quite delicate, it's quite nice to have something that's a little bit chunkier. So I have got my 6-stranded DMC thread and I'm going to put some bullion knots in. So bullion knot, we're going to come up at the top where you want that knot to be, go down to the bottom of where you want that knot to be. Don't pull it all the way through, and then come back up. Now normally you'd do an in and out, but because I'm doing this on a bit of quilting, it's a little bit hard, so all I need to do is just have my needle stuck out, wrap it round, and I want about the same number of threads on the needle as the length of the stitch. If you've got a milliner's needle, it makes it a little bit easier because the eye of the needle is no thicker than the needle, so it just makes this pulling off bit a little bit easier. Scrunch it up and then do the bottom end of your stitch, so you can start putting little sprigs of these in and amongst. So I'm just going to go down. I don't have to put stems on everything because I've got quite a few stems on there now, so that's creating my background for all my flowers. But there are so many different stitches that you could use, so if you are a beginner stitcher, just keep it really simple. If you have favourite stitches that you like using, please use them. If you want to add little embellishments in there, little beads would be quite nice, some tiny little seed beads. So I'm starting to build that all up now, so I'll carry on with my little bunch of flowers. I'll hold that up there, you just get a bit of a better view. Well, the camera really is playing today. Hopefully this is making it a little bit easier for everybody to see, so I'll carry on really adding to that. Now I don't know whether or not I would add, pull one of my buttons off. Oop. I could add a little button in, but sometimes it can be a bit heavy, so it might be quite nice just to stick to just these. I think the only thing I might add, I haven't got any up here, they're all on my little sewing station downstairs, I might pop in some tiny little beads just to give it a little bit of sparkle. So that's where we're up to. We're going to be doing our little pot. So all I'll do to finish it off is I'll push this in a little bit so that you've got like a little opening from there. So because I could stitch that on now if I wanted to, and then just carry on stitching. But that's basically what we're doing this week. It's a little bunch of flowers, a little vase of flowers, or you might, it's like, I'm not sure about those corners. Ooh, this is where I do my usual thing where it's like, ooh, oh, I quite like the little corners taken in. Looks a little bit more like a pot rather than going, yeah, that's a bit better. Rather than going right to the edge of my tag, I think I'm going to fold those in. Yeah, that looks better. Just fold it in just a little bit. And it's like one of those things, what I could do with this if I wanted to, which I might do, is some little pink French knots on there, just to add something else to my piece. You know what I'm like once I get going. So that's this week's, our little bunch of flowers. Like usual, I'll pop some photos on the end. I'm really chuffed that the cameras actually started playing. Before, when I've done it on autofocus, it's just just like it did then. It goes in and out and in and out and in and out, which is really, really annoying. So there is our little bunch of flowers. If you wanted to do it without that on, like I say, what you would do is take those stems down to a point, then kick them out at the bottom, and then what you could do is get a little bit of ribbon or something so that when you're finished, might even just be some, like a chunk of thread, you just pop a little chunk of thread on and then a little bow, and it looks like a hand-tied bunch of flowers. This could be a little garden, so you might get, I don't know, a little bit of fabric over the top and just turn it into a little garden. That could have a little bit of lace on the bottom. So as usual, it's whatever you would like to do. but I really look forward to seeing your little flowers in a colour that you either don't like or don't usually use. So that's me for another week. Happy stitching. I hope everybody's safe and well, and I am sending you love and a massive virtual hug. See you soon. Bye bye.